So I'm sitting here and I'm thinking, how can I open this video with some engaging, enticing story or some hook that would get your attention? But I've really just decided to be straight up and talk about depression, panic, anxiety, worry, because having suffered with these emotions and feelings that so much of the world is dealing with, I've learned on my journey some tools and methods that have helped to really break free of these often very, very distressful feelings that can really freeze us and stop us from living the lives that we want to live. And something I'm really passionate about is teaching and sharing tools and skills that we just don't learn at school. And this particular tool that I want to share with you, if we learnt at school, could be such a game changer. But the good news is you're here and I'll share this with you. And it's called the ABCDEs to optimism, or to breaking free from panic, worry, and depression and get into a more optimistic, can-do, feel-better state. Now, this methodology was developed by a Dr. Martin Seligman, if you want to look him up, and the book and program is called Learned Optimism. However, to get to it and to give you a quick summary of the benefits, how to use it, and I'll put in a little asset tool that you can use if you'd like to, if this resonates with you, to help you deal with worry, panic, emotion, depression, and just be one of those tools in your toolkit to be able to better navigate through life. So let me continue on. Quick backstory, have had my own challenges throughout the years, being a sensitive person and someone who's had his own challenges and experiences as a childhood that, as Dr. Martin Seligman talks about, some of us who have experienced trauma in life, especially as children, can really set the foundation for people that are going to have a greater propensity to be dealt the cards of these emotional feelings of depression and worry and anxiety. And for however it happened, I won't go into that today because we live in a world with well-meaning parents, but things happen in life, and it's no one's fault very often. Sometimes it is, but very often it's not. But we can grow up and we've got these emotions and feelings. So what can we do to cut to it? Well, to get to it, I've just done this little diagram here, and it's a little process. Well, actually, it's not a little process. It's quite a big, important process. It's a few steps. But for me, teaching this morning to a group of people that I have been training and working with, and seeing how the light bulbs have gone off for them in having a tool that they can use to better navigate these emotions and the challenges of life that we can all be faced with. And I was just motivated to share it. So here goes. The ABCDs to feeling better, or in the words of Dr. Martin Seligman, to learned optimism, getting out of funk, getting into feeling better so we can feel better and we can get into action if needed. And really quickly, let's go through it and I'll give you a quick example of how it works. The adversity. So the adversity is, what is the issue or challenge that I'm currently dealing with? And let's say, for example, you are struggling in a job, let's say, and you're not happy in the job, but the bottom line is it's challenging you for whatever reasons, and we can unpack that as an example in the following steps. And the next one is the belief. So what is it that I believe about this adversity that is causing me upset, panic, worry, putting me into feelings of depression? And maybe it's, I don't like the work. It's boring, it's not what I want to do, and I feel really depressed and flat and just don't like doing this job. And that's what we believe. So from that, if you don't already know this, it's the thoughts that we think that generate the feelings that come from that. So if someone feels motivated about their job and their work. They're going to be more energized. They're going to be have more clarity, and these are good feelings to have. But if we've got an adversity or a situation that we find ourselves in, it could be job, money, relationship, health, any of these challenging areas, these areas that can present challenges for us in life. And then if we have a belief about it, then we will generate consequential feelings. And the feelings could be lethargy, frustration, helplessness, boring, which can then turn on feelings, depending on how long we let it go and we let it ruminate in our head, can form into feelings of depression, where we can't get out of bed, we have no motivation. And if you've experienced any form of panic and worry and depression, you know what I'm talking about. And at severe levels, it can be completely debilitating. And I am no professional expert in this space, but I've had my own experiences and found myself in very challenging times emotionally, but gotten myself out of it through using tools like this and working with professionals. And even in the past, I've taken medication to help. So it's a combination process. But this tool, supported with good counselling and, if required, medication and giving up alcohol or whatever else could be impacting it, is a powerful tool. So coming back to the process, the consequential feelings: I feel flat, I feel confused, I feel scared, I feel depressed. And then back into the belief. The belief could be, I'm stuck in this job. There's no other job out there. I will be here forever. It's just terrible and I'm trapped. Again, this cycle can then lead into more feelings of depression and flatness and confusion. And as I'm sure we can appreciate, this just becomes the recipe for worry and panic and depression to grow to greater levels and can be extremely debilitating. However, what can we do? What's the good news here? And what did Martin Seligman, and I can't remember, it was actually originally designed, now I remember, by some other psychologists. But anyway, thanks Dr. Martin Seligman, that's how I discovered this. And what can we do? So into a bit more detail, if I've got your attention and this is helpful, I'll put this link for this document. But the first thing is, we want to go on the hunt and we want to dispute what it is our brain is telling us. Because if and while everyone can deal with these emotional challenges, as Dr. Martin Seligman shared, and as I've learned in my own studies, if we've had childhood trauma in whatever form, it can create the greater propensity for our brain to naturally default to those feelings of worry, danger, fear, because that's what was hardwired in as a young age. So it will very often give thoughts of the worst possible outcome, when so often it's just not true, but it can feel very true because of what thoughts our brains are generating. So it's our job, as Dr. Martin Seligman says, is to go on the hunt. We have to, as hard as this is, because I know when you feel like that, you don't even want to think. So I'm not suggesting that this is easy, but even this done in an imperfect little bit of a way can be the beginning of something improving over time, because as your spirits lift and you have more hope, you'll have more motivation to do this more and to feel better. And that's what I wish for you, and that's what I wish for all of us. So we want to dispute it. The first thing is, sometimes, depending on these worries, it could just be to say stop. Stop and just try and help manage our brain from running this record. And while it wasn't in here previously, I've added it in, and I learnt this from Marissa Peers. If you haven't seen Marissa Peers, I would check her out on YouTube, because there's a process that she does which is very similar in her work, and I really feel it's very relevant to this process. Before we can go on this journey of change, belief, looking at alternatives and freeing ourselves from these very debilitating feelings, what I've learned through Marissa Peers is to find a space to allow. And instead of trying to avoid what we feel or just go straight into action and reframing, the power of allowing ourselves to feel these feelings in our body, because it's our body and brain is protecting us, trying to protect us, or it's a learned habit that it's running. And if we can stop and allow ourselves to feel these feelings and to accept that they are normal and human, and they are very often only feelings. I do respect and understand that sometimes things are real, they are present, we do need to attend to them, but even just going into a mindful state and feeling those feelings and talking to ourselves and saying, okay, I feel worried, I feel scared, these are real feelings, but just soothe ourselves and be with it. Because very often when we look at that supposed dog barking that seems so scary, we can learn that the barking dog isn't real or it doesn't have teeth, if you get the metaphor. Yeah, it's a barking dog, but it really is nothing to be afraid of, but it can feel very real. So I would like to add into the disputation part to allow and feel. And then we can go on the work. The work can be, firstly, to ask ourselves, is this useful? Is what I'm thinking and ruminating over and getting myself into a state useful and helpful? Well, maybe it can be. Maybe you have felt unhappy in this role, and this message that you're being given is useful to tell you something needs to change. And I know it can be very scary to consider changing jobs, and are there jobs out there, and can I find something that I'm going to be happier with? Very scary. So is it useful? And very often it can be. It just can be a bit scary to recognize that it is, and some things need to happen to start feeling better. Yeah? The next thing is excuse me, I'll just have a quick water here. Thanks for watching. If you're still with me, hope you find this helpful. The next thing is there evidence? Is there any evidence of what I'm worrying about and really stressed about actually real? Is it really here? Can I see any of it? Now, maybe in some circumstances, there is real evidence that there are some things that need to be attended to. How often, for this example, maybe there is no evidence other than just the worries that whoever's dealing with this particular example is creating in their mind. There's no evidence that there's no other jobs out there. There's no evidence that they can't find a better place to work and feel more fulfilled. That would be how I'd be responding to this particular section of the disputation. And then, is this permanent or temporary? Because for me, what my brain can tend to do when I'm in a worried, stress, anxious state is my mind defaults to, it's going to be like this forever. I'm going to feel like this forever. And my job doing this work and this disputation, arguing work is, this is temporary. The chances of me being in this position and state for the next week, month, year, 10 years, 20 years is just not possible, because knowing me in this, for as an example, I will eventually make the changes to do that. But sometimes we need to remind ourselves and our brain that's trying to protect us and running these program ways of thinking that, hey, brain, this is temporary. This is temporary. We may not have all the answers yet, but this is not a permanent situation that we find ourselves in. Okay? All right. Now, I know there's a bit here involved, but if you want to feel better and do some things to help yourself feel better, as I know this has helped me so much, is there's a bit of thinking work to do. And the thinking work is so often what will help us break free or start to loosen the grip of panic and anxiety over time by changing the way we think about and feel about these thoughts that are causing us duress. Okay? The next thing is personalization and depersonalization. Is this situation something that I can directly control or impacting me, or are there a number of people involved? Because very often people that struggle with depression and panic and anxiety, they see it all as their fault, their responsibility, no one else's. They take it all on. I did it, I should be able to change it. And this is very, very depressing because so often there are the people involved. Now, if we come back to this example of the job and wanting to change jobs, well, maybe it's because there are things in that role that don't work for this person anymore. Maybe it's changed. Maybe once it was quite satisfying, but now it's not, and there's things that they don't like and they can't change. That's not this person's fault. It's just what it is. But what can this person do? Well, this person can start doing this work and start helping oneself to feel better and start getting a little plan together to go and create a change to move into a place that's going to have them feel happier and more fulfilled in life. Yeah? Okay. So the next thing is, what are the positives from this situation? What are the positives? Well, the positives, I feel, for this particular example is the brain is saying, you are not happy. There are things that you want to do that would make you feel happier. And so it's a positive message. Now, I get it. I get that change can be scary and uncomfortable because the brain loves sameness. The brain doesn't want to ever allow us to go into a place of perceived danger because of its feeling that we're going to be at threat, which is born from gazillion years ago when we were on the savannah and we had to protect ourselves from lions and tigers, that every potential risk, the brain would fire cortisol and put us into fight or flight, and it still does that, but in situations where we're not going to be eaten by a tiger. So I recognize that feeling does come up. However, what could we do as little steps to start creating change? So the positives are, it's giving me a message that something needs to change, and this is a good thing. This is a good thing. The next thing is, what is the ideal? What is the ideal situation that just if this person who's not happy in the job just decided to do some dreaming and focus on what could be possible? Could a better job in an area that they have more passion or want to do, even if it's 50% better, or ideally 100%, of course, but it's not always that case. But what is the ideal? Where could it be? Dare to dream, dare to allow positive thoughts in of what it could be, where it could be, what they could be doing, how they could be doing. And so often I found in life, and maybe you can relate, that when you've gone and dared to dream what the ideal is and put that thinking in place and focus on that, over time, the magic works and it shows up. It shows up, but the work is to do the thinking work and to put that out there into the ether so it can start, however the magic works, to start bringing it towards us, as opposed to staying stuck in worry and fear and doubt, which is just going to keep exacerbating that. So this is the process to break out of that and slowly move into a place of thinking and feeling and starting to take action that's going to be more positive and supportive to us. So then, the last two areas is, what are some actions that this person can start taking? Even if it's just little actions. Little actions could be, well, I'm going to start writing out or dreaming what is the ideal or what is the better. And if it's really confusing and hard at the moment, because I know how that can feel, start listening to some positive information. Start watching or keep watching videos like this where people can give you hope that you can find your way. Start talking to some friends or family, or if you need to, speak to a professional and say, this is how I'm feeling, excuse me. Acknowledge you feel very confused and overwhelmed. Can you help me navigate myself into a place where I can start feeling better to start developing a plan? And I actually did this myself a few years ago. I'd started a business, and it turned out after I set it all up, it was really not what I wanted to do. And I fell into a deep pit of panic, worry, and depression because I thought, well, now what? I've invested all that time, money, energy, and I don't want to do that. And my beautiful partner, actually, she found a service that was for small business owners who were struggling and wanting to go through change. And it was a specific counselling service for small business owners or business owners to help them navigate through change. And you had to apply for the program. I applied for it. And really, in a lot of ways, the process was very simple and it was very similar to this, but just having that person who could listen, hear, help formulate thoughts into you can do this, or go have a look, get on the internet, start just seeing what's out there. Sometimes that can just be all that we need to push us into some action and start feeling hopeful again, as opposed to being stuck and paralyzed in fear. Yeah, and maybe you can relate to this, and I'm sure many of you watching this can. But again, just being given that support. So then what are the actions that we can take? And start putting down some actions and maybe get a little list together, and maybe the list could be, I'm going to start speaking kindly to myself, and if my brain starts running all these fears, I'm going to tell it to stop and to accept it with love that it's trying to protect me, And as Marissa Peer says, allow it to come up, because the more we can allow these feelings to come up, I've learned the more they start to dissipate, because it starts to learn that it's got no power. When we avoid it and we drink or, do things that are, unresourceful, these fears and emotions just stay boiling under there. And this is where very often a lot of problems occur. So have the courage, you can do it, to sit with the feelings of fear and to allow it to come up, and learn that you can cope and you are much stronger than maybe you think you are, especially in these times that can be very destabilizing, and we don't quite realize the power that we have. Okay, so coming towards the end, thanks so much if you're still watching this. I hope it's helpful. With this, hopefully you're feeling what is the final one is the euphoria. The euphoria of starting to feel better, to recognize, okay, I am feeling this way by this situation. I do have emotions around it, but what can I start to do to support myself, coach myself, get help, start thinking about the gifts and benefits in this. You don't have to change everything in a minute. I know it can be very overwhelming to consider changing, and the brain's trying to protect you, but start having a look, whatever that action is. And very often it might just be a few little things. And those things could just be the things that will work to get you the momentum to start breaking out of that heavy, depressed, panic feeling and start moving into a more self-nurturing, optimistic, hey, I can do this. There are things out there. And sure, at times I get it. Sometimes in life, there are things that are very overwhelming. Very often there are other people involved that can cause a lot of stress. But if this process can even help you navigate those very stressful times, that there are alternatives. I can work with people, I can seek help, I can take care of myself, or I can change this and leave this. It might take a while, but it could just be those little things to get you changing from there to a better place. And that's what I wish for you. And that is what I wish from sharing this information, is to help us remember and have the tools that we don't learn at school. So many things that we could learn at school to help us live happier, more fulfilling, abundant lives is something I'm very passionate about. And this is one of them, how we can manage our mind better. Because again, I don't mean to repeat myself. I know how helpful it's been for me to have these tools. I'm going through some decisions myself, and I'm using this a lot at myself. And it's inspired me to share this with the world. And again, thank you if you watch this and you find that the ABCs to breaking free of worry and fear is helpful for you. And I'll close off with this, that I love you and I wish the best for everyone. And the only way a hammer works is when you use the hammer to hit the nail. It doesn't work sitting in the toolbox. The only way this tool works is to take it out and to use it. And I will say this respectfully, I know what depression and panic can do. It can feel like it can grip us and we don't want to do anything. And the challenge with it is it's trying to fight for its life, is what I believe. But if you can push back a little bit every day with using tools like this, if you're under some sort of supervision, counseling, support program, utilize that person, those tools. If you're on medication and that's helping you, take that, because it's an all-encompassing process. But don't just think the medication's the solution. Don't just think it's the counselor's going to save you. My journey experiences and the people that I've seen navigate through challenging times is they find a way to do this work. But what's the good news from doing the work and really confronting oneself to do this work and take responsibility for oneself is life can be so much more beautiful. It's not without challenge, it's not without hurdles, but to break free of those feelings, I know how painful and debilitating they can be, and they don't have to be there. And when they do arise, you've got tools to keep moving forward and sit at night, feel good, feel relaxed. You can sleep, you can get up, you can go walk, you can go be with your family, you can live your life in a much more fulfilling way. I know it's possible because I've been there and I'm speaking from experience. it's a terrible place, but it doesn't have to be that way, and we can break free. Maybe I'll share some of my stories another time on how I found myself in a hole, and it was very tough, but I got myself out, and it was because I was able to get in front of these tools from some very helpful people. Anyway, enough of me. Thanks for watching. My name's Trevor Russell. Just wanting to share messages of and tools that can help us live a happier, more fulfilling, prosperous, abundant life. I'll speak tongue-tied. I'll speak to you on another video soon, but tools down below, download it. And if you ever want to reach out, maybe I can help or direct you towards someone. Be a pleasure, because a rising tide lifts all ships. Love you, believe in you. Speak to you soon.